Part 2. What colleges did I apply to? Uh, I was very clear that I wanted to make it to the top IIMs or to one of the top 10 to 12 institutes in the country. So I applied primarily to IIM ABC, LIK, did not apply to CAP, contrary to a lot of opinion, and did not apply to any of the baby IIMs or the smaller IIMs either. I also applied to XLRI in their BM and HRM programs. Did not apply to Symbiosis or to MICA or any of the other Jim Goa. All of these institutes I did not apply to. I also applied to NMIMS just as a fallback. Yeah, so those were my applications. Um, what calls did I get? I think I got all the calls that I had applied to. Um, and yeah, of course, two colleges that I forgot to mention, MDI and FMS as well. I got all of these calls except for IIM Ahmedabad. And I think I was able to convert all of them. Some were initially waitlisted, but at the end of the day, I have converted all of my calls. There were 11 calls in total, going course wise. IMB, CLIK, Shillong, and XLRI, BM, and HRM, MDI, FMS, NMIMS. So those were the calls. And of course, IMB, PGPBA as well. How did I prepare for these calls and how many hours? What did I need to prepare? Yeah. Well, preparation for the GDPI process is kind of, uh, well, I mean, when it started out, it seemed as if it would just be a run of the mill interview, but very soon it kind of I kind of understood that this was not going to be like any other job interview that I had given in my life, where I could just go and wing it. Um, the first step, of course, to all of these, interviews is to know very extensively about yourself. Because if you know what you stand for and what are the things that matter to you, or your own strengths and weaknesses, where you stand vis-a-vis others, where you stand vis-a-vis the college that you're applying to. A lot of these things are already taken off your plate, and uh, no matter what question the interviewers throw at you, you at least have a chance of answering it vis-a-vis your own life journey. So that's the first thing that you should be doing. Uh, when it comes to preparation in terms of hours, well, there were times when I was preparing extensively for, let's say, 2 to 3 days throughout the entire weekend for these kinds of things. You know, there were times when I used to stand in front of the mirror for like 3 to 4 hours and just try to, practice introducing myself in a minute in a way that had maximum impact. Um, and this is a very subjective thing. It depends on how comfortable you are in tackling questions that are thrown at you on the spot. Uh, what did I read to prepare? So I think I'll just backtrack for this one a little bit. As part of the GDPI process, I think there are predominantly 3 to 4 areas that need to be prepared. First of all is the whole HR questions bit, the knowing yourself bit, part of it, which we already discussed at length. The second part is technical knowledge or past experience, all of these things. So where you need to be thorough with your own, journey as a student or throughout your work experience. For example, I was a chartered accountant, and so I was expected to know a little bit about the Indian economy, have a fair understanding of the taxation and audit laws which were there, even though I was not really working as a chartered accountant. And other than that, I was also expected to know a little bit more about the company that I worked for, the sector in which it operated, and all of these different kinds of questions. And lastly, the thing that matters in these interviews is general awareness or current affairs, in which there is no real um, option to this except to like read up and talk to people, converse to people, develop an informed opinion on these kinds of things. Um, what did I read to prepare? Well, there's like a list of publications that I can give. So first of all, starting with something as basic as the Times of India and the Economic Times, and moving on, reading things like Harvard Business Review, or the Quint, the Print, all of these other independent newspapers which are there, because they tend to carry a more opinionated take on things. You would also want to read varied newspapers such as the Business Standard or the Guardian, which give international coverage, the Wall Street Journal, New York Times. All of these publications give you like a big range to your reading list. Of course, I would also recommend millennials especially to like subscribe to uh, Robin Hood Snacks and FinShots Daily. These are two podcasts which kind of give like a daily brief summary on things. And then if you really feel like there are things in there that you are interested in or that you would like to read upon, you can always go back and kind of Google it out and read whatever else you can find on it. That was one part of it. The second is that, of course, there is the India book of facts, which is there, which is released on a yearly basis, but that becomes too cumbersome to kind of do in a few short weeks before the GDPI process. And so it would make more sense to develop a list of topics from the year before and which are currently happening, uh, and kind of form an opinion on these topics. So, what in fact we were doing is that a group of us were going topic wise. So, for example, there was somebody who was, let's say, looking at only the Suez Canal crisis that happened a few months ago, and finding out all the facts that surrounding the whole ship getting stuck, and what was the name of the ship, and what were the logistics, and what was going to be the international impact of it, because it was a very important artery. So that's just an example. One person can may not have the time or the energy or the resources to go into so much detail about every single topic, and so it helps to have a peer group who thinks a little bit different, and kind of is as dedicated towards the whole process as you are. So you can kind of fall back on them, divide topics amongst yourselves, come back to the table, discuss, give each other summaries and synopses of it, and well, with that, kind of develop your own opinion around it, and take that into the exam. I mean, into the GDPI round with you. And of course, there's this thing about whether or not you should be noting down facts, etc. Personally, I found that it helped me a lot to note down certain key stats and figures, which I could quote on the fly, like the GDP of India, or the population of India, or let's say the latest consumer price index, which was notified, or the wholesale price index, which was notified, gold rates, fuel rates, um, crude prices from recent, let's say, a monthly trend or a weekly trend of that. All of these things kind of help you to kind of have an informed opinion. Prices of the Bitcoin or other cryptos which are going on right now, what's happening world over with them. All of these things, it helps to have like a diary or a note. I tried doing this digitally, but uh, personally I felt that just writing it once by hand gives a little bit of an edge. So do keep that in mind. Apart from that, of course, quiz each other on your questions. When it comes to HR questions, there is no set format. It all depends on the mood of the interviewer in front of you. So it helps if somebody picks apart your questions other than your tutors or other than your mentors like sir or ma'am, and from whom you are, I mean, uh, kind of respectfully getting feedback, as well as you're able to give them feedback also. So you're able to brainstorm mutually answers to questions, potential answers to questions. I remember I had my friend with whom I used to do this. And what used to happen is that if I'd get a question in a particular interview or in a mock interview, I'd call her up, we'd discuss it. Then because we already knew each other's life stories, um, I was able to recommend to her what she should be saying if she faced that question in an exam, and vice versa. And so many times it used to happen that after a particular interview or a mock interview, we used to spend, so let's say that the interview lasted for maybe 20 to 30 minutes. We used to spend the next 1.5 to 2 hours on the phone together, just talking about the interview that was. and about the questions, about the demeanor of the interviewer, what we should be expecting in the next ones, what we could improve in the next ones, and so on and so forth. And I owe a lot of my improvement that I made to this whole interaction that used to happen after every interview. What helped me convert my calls? I think that at the end of the day, what helped me was being asked very tough questions very often by either my mentors or by my peer group with whom I was preparing, or by the interviewers themselves sometimes. If I bombed a earlier interview, then I was sure not to make that same mistake in the next interview. And so it's really a process of discovering yourself throughout this whole process. um, and what helps is to retain your individuality. You can try very, very hard to be somebody that you're not, but if you try really hard, they can tell because they've probably interviewed a dime a dozen people. Any pretense or any semblance of I am this person which you're really not is not going to fly with them. So just maintain your individuality and try to get that across in the interviews, because there is something that has set you apart from everybody else if you're getting those calls. So you better bank on that thing, find that thing that you've done in your life which sets you apart. Um, for me personally, let's say for example, it was my languages, the fact that I read a lot, the fact that I write, and my work experience, which is unique to a chartered accountant. And so I used to make sure that within the first minute itself, I used to catch the attention of my interviewers with all of this. I literally used to start sometimes if I thought that the interviewers were in a jolly mood. I used to really start with, I'm a misfit in the world of CAs. And a couple of times this led to really, really funny interview stories. I mean, we literally had a laugh in the middle of the interview because I chose to break the ice with this sentence. They'd ask me why I said that, and then I'd justify it. There were times when I called myself a firefighter in the exam hall because my job was all about, kind of working directly with the CEO and the management of the company, and which meant that I really did not have a set job description. I had to do anything and everything that required the attention of the top desk. um, and of course, then there was the fact that I knew languages, so which used to come across in, let's say, really unique forms. I used to say that I know 7 languages, and then I used to enumerate them. In maybe one interview, I was actually told to speak in German, and in Japanese, which are the 2 other languages that I know apart from my native tongues, etc. And then there was the fact that I write, which also used to come across various times. I mean, I was asked to um, kind of tell them a strategy as to how I would improve the reach on my own blog. And it makes sense to ask yourself these questions beforehand. If there is an aspect of your life that you're exposing to the interview, make sure that you've picked yourself apart on it way before that, or you've asked somebody else to ask you all the questions possible about it. Write down, first of all. I mean, I used to draw these mind clouds, I think, where, let's say, I'd write, I don't know, CA in the middle, and then I'd kind of draw branches from it. And in each branch, I'd write a different aspect of CA, which could be brought into question. So let's say current affairs or economy, or let's say taxation or audit, or any other domain that was there, or my own personal experiences, or leadership stories from the time that I worked as a chartered accountant, or from my articleship journey. So all of these things, you need to plot in your own way and ensure that you have answers to any potential counters that can happen. Of course, this will only prepare you 80 to 90% maybe. There is always that element of surprise that you'll have to live with. But better to prepare yourself as best you can. Any other tips? Oh, well, there are a lot of tips to be really honest, but I would say that just trust yourself on this. There are times when you will come by advice from your mentors or from people near you, your friends, or some other XYZ forum, Quora. There are a number of people who write about their experiences on Quora, etc. Students who have already qualified into the campus, like me. A lot of people will offer you a lot of advice, which may or may not squarely apply in your case. So take it all with a pinch of salt. The best thing to do is to be well versed with your own journey, to know your own life story inside out. And for that, if you have to write out the whole thing once, or you have to like talk about it for 10 times straight to somebody, do whatever it takes, but ensure that you know what you are good at, because that is in the end something that you have to get across to the interviewer in maybe 15 to 20 minutes. And of course, have that element of fun. The people in front of you who are going to be interviewing you are also humans at the end of the day. They also get bored, they also get tired. Um, Try to step into their shoes, try to have a conversation. Don't just talk, listen as well. Respond to nonverbal cues. And in general, just maintain a smile on your face, of course, as always. And remember that it's not the end of the world if one of the institutes that you are really yearning for does not shortlist you or rejects you after the interview is done, or if the doesn't seem to be going good and you think that things are not going well. It might, on the contrary, be working in favor of you, that you're able to handle that kind of pressure and still kind of respond back. So don't give up at any point during the interview. Keep it as lively and interesting as possible. And of course, feel free to reach out to me as well if in case there are any qualms or queries that you have. Um, you can always get my contact from Sir and Ma'am, and all the best with your prep journey. Thank you for listening so long.